Hi, it's Roberta Fernandez, and welcome back to Mindful Influences. Before we can start on our journey on how hypnosis is a part of almost everything that we do, how it can influence in positive ways and in negative ways our day to day lives, it's really important that you understand a few concepts, simply put, about the brain and how your mind works. So, we're going to start with what I call the four laws of the mind. And those letters stand for FAIR. It's an acronym FARE: focus, associate, repeat, and expect. So, let me take a moment to explain. This is how everyone processes information. So, we start with focusing on something. What you focus on, you get more of. It expands. So if you're getting things that you don't like, you need to look at where you're putting your focus. The A, associate, means that we set up triggers. When all of our thoughts, our images, our actions, and behaviors start to attach to that focus, they become triggers. So, for example, many years ago, I used to work with smokers, and smokers would always say things like, I just love getting up in the morning, having that first cup of coffee and a cigarette, reading the paper, having my breakfast. Well, all of those things, eating, reading, drinking, newspapers, all of it, getting up in the morning becomes a trigger to have that cigarette. Getting what I'm going here? So many times we develop these kinds of triggers and we're not even aware of them. It could be music, it could be a picture, it could be a scene in a movie, it could be a smell, it could be anything. And these things are set up, automated by our brains to attach to these areas of focus. When we repeat them often, that's the R, repetition, and add passion. Remember, the smoker said, I just love having that first cigarette. When we repeat things often enough with passion, they become your truth. And this is really important because passion is typically love, hate, and fear. Those are the strongest emotions that we feel. And so when we do that repetitively, this is how our subconscious mind learns. More about that in a moment. That becomes an automated habit or way of thinking. And then finally, the E, you get exactly what you expect you will. And your protective mechanisms in your brain are going to rule out anything to the contrary. This is one of the reasons why people have such a hard time changing, because we have these internal mechanisms that, in order to keep our sanity and not get our little minds overloaded, it keeps a lot of this stuff out. So people are less open to new ideas. So let me give you an example of how this would work. And in order to do this, I need you to look at me. Put your focus here on me. And I was never a good whistler, so I can't whistle, but I can do a swishing sound. So I want you to notice my finger. Just focus on my finger and the sound of my voice. Whoosh, 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 whoosh. Did you hear it? Most people will. I had you focus on me, my finger in particular. I was making a sound. Whoosh. I did it repetitively over and over again. And you had triggers, the movement of my finger with the sound, and you were focused on me. You see where this is going? I did it repetitively. And when I did it the last time without the noise, guess what? Your brain filled it in because you heard it, didn't you? That was your expectation. So it's really important that you understand this is the basis of how everyone's mind works. And if you want real change, you can intervene in that system focus, associate, repeat, and expect. Change your focus. That's honestly the best one to focus on, to change. Set up new triggers, something that's more positive for you or that distracts you from that other thing that you don't want. Repeat those good behaviors, those good triggers, and you will get what you expect that you will. Now, there's another part to this educational part that is really important for you to understand. And that is the difference between how your conscious mind works and your subconscious mind works. Now, I'm going to keep this really simple because obviously this is a very complicated topic. So we're first going to talk about what I call the conscious mind. That is the part that we think is the bomb. We think that it is our conscious mind that makes all of our decisions, and you'd be right about that if you think that. It is our decision-making mind, our judgmental mind, our logical mind. It has a need to figure stuff out. And when it can't figure stuff out, well, guess what? It'll make it up. It'll take a little bit of the truth and it'll build a narrative around it that fits the agenda that you want to have. The conscious mind is scientifically the weakest part of the mind. It's the part of the mind, the only part of your brain that actually goes to sleep at night and doesn't function at all. When you go into sleep, your conscious mind literally sleeps too. It shuts off. The conscious mind, if we looked at it as a metaphor of a computer, is only about 5% of your brain's computing power. That's it. On your A game day, you can handle 7, maybe 9 things at a time before quality starts to erode, things start falling through the cracks, you forget about this, and you get overwhelmed. So, in the scope of our total capacity, the conscious mind is the smallest. Let's compare that to the other part of our brain, which is I refer to as the subconscious mind. Subconscious because we're aware of things consciously, but subconsciously we're really not aware of what's going on. And I divide this into 2 parts. The unconscious mind, which is kind of in charge of your bodily processes. You know, all of your cardiac, your nervous system, your respiratory system, everything that's going on that keeps you alive is that bodily process. It also is responsible for letting our conscious mind know what kind of emotions are being generated in the subconscious mind. That happens through the body. We'll talk more about that in a minute. So, the subconscious mind is really where all your computing power is, about 95% of it. There are literally hundreds of thousands of things going on every second, most of which you are totally unaware of. So, that is our real powerhouse. It is almost exactly the polar opposite of our conscious mind because the subconscious mind is home to your emotions, home to your imagination. It houses your belief systems and your rules about life. It houses all of your long-term memories. So you can see how different that is in comparison to the conscious mind. That logical decision making has to figure stuff out part, right? And here's the thing. Neither can do the other job. The conscious mind can't be emotional, and the subconscious mind is not logical. They also learn very differently. The conscious mind hates repetition, gets bored with it very easily. The subconscious mind learns through repetition. And this is how, through repetition, that your brain automates everything. When was the last time you thought about how to tie your shoes? Probably when you were 5 or 6 years old, learning to do it, right? And you practiced it over and over again. You focused on it. You associated the feel of the laces and how your fingers were moving and just the need to touch your shoes to do it, right? You did it repeatedly over and over again. And it felt really good when you were successful. And that created some really positive emotions. And now you get exactly what you expect you will. Go put on that pair of shoes and try to tie those laces and be conscious of doing it. It's going to take you 2 or 3 times as long. And you actually have to think about it. But your brain, because it is so amazing in its capacity, automates all of our day-to-day tasks. How you brush your teeth, how you put your clothes on, you name it. In fact, I would dare to say that at least 98% of your day is automated. Now, there's been a lot of studies. Some of them I think are better than others, but this is a factual thing. We don't have a lot of original thoughts during the course of our day. Think about how automated your life is, your daily routine in the morning when you get up or when you go to bed at night, your work routine. All of this doesn't really require a lot of thought, even driving your car. Now, when you were a teen and you were first learning how to drive your car, oh, you probably cranked that radio down because you didn't need another conscious distraction. You were juggling already your 5 or your 7 to 9 things at a time. Brake, gas pedal, blinkers, where am I in the lane, looking in the rearview mirror, looking in the side mirror. There's a lot going on. But once that gets automated, guess what? Those teens crank up that radio, don't they? That's right. Because the more they practice, the quicker the automation happens. And these automations are simply habits. They are thoughts and behaviors that we think over and over again. Now, there is something, a third factor here, which in my world of hypnosis, we call the critical factor. And this is something that starts forming around the same time our logical mind starts forming. You know, you don't have a logical conscious mind when you're young. Your brain has not developed the capacity to think logically. That happens somewhere around the ages 6 to 8 years old. This is also when the critical factor starts to form. And that continues to form in females through their early 20s and males late 20s, which means for a lot of those years, we are still functioning more in awareness in our subconscious mind. And eventually that logical conscious mind takes over during our course of our day to day. And it's different for everybody, how quickly it develops, how strongly it develops. But the point of this is that when it is developed, it is very hard, if not impossible, consciously to get into that subconscious mind because they no longer talk very well to each other. The way they communicate is through the body. So, for example, when you experience an emotion which is created in the subconscious mind, let's say it's fear, perhaps the hair on the back of your neck goes up. And that tells your conscious mind that you're experiencing the emotion of fear. When you are sad, the emotion of loss, you may cry. The body produces tears to let your conscious mind know that you are experiencing the emotion of sadness. So we say that we feel sad because the feelings come through the body. The body is the communicator between the subconscious mind and the conscious mind. So that's a little bit of how your mind works. Why is this important to you when it comes to mindful influences? Well, let's tie that in to the 4 laws of the mind. Since the day you were born, remember, you have no logical mind at that age. This is why every 4-year-old believes that on one night, Santa Claus goes around the whole world delivering presents to every single house in the world. They don't question that belief. They believe it because their parents told them that. They don't have a logical mind to figure out that that's not possible. That doesn't start happening until around 5 to 7 years old. So during that time of our young youth, we are filled with lots of ideas and thoughts and belief systems at an age where we don't have any context for it. So a little child may see someone, adults, let's say, what they perceive as arguing because they're talking in loud voices and maybe they have very serious looking faces. And that child may start to develop a belief about how scary confrontation is. when in actuality, those adults might even just be playing with each other, right? But the child has no concept or context of that part of the real world. So lots of things happen when we're very young that are misperceptions and misunderstandings. And yet they start to form basis of our belief systems as we get older. And if those things in some way are repeated often enough over the course of time, they become very deeply embedded belief systems, most of which are never really our own to begin with. So we hold a lot of beliefs, most of which we're not aware of, because guess what? They're stored in the subconscious mind, and consciously, we can't even get there, except that they might get triggered by something that we see in a movie or on TV or in a conversation. So you see how this is tying together? And the more we focus on something maybe that's bothering us, the more we associate with that thing that bothers us, the more we repeat it, it becomes our expectation. So it can be this vicious cycle, but there is a way out of it. And hypnosis is a great way to get to those limiting beliefs and beliefs that no longer serve us, those outdated things that we've carried all of our life, some of which have become problematic, most of which, we don't ever think of again. But it's important for you to know this because understanding how the mind works is going to help you when we start discussing things like hypnosis and politics, hypnosis and religion, hypnosis and social media, advertising, our workplaces, our conversations with our significant others or our friends. It is influential in everything that we do. So, before I end, I want to talk to you about what hypnosis is and what it isn't. Hypnosis is a state of mind, usually involving a trance state, and this is scientific, this isn't woo-woo stuff. There is alpha trance and theta trance. And you go through them every single day. When you go to sleep, you go from beta, which is where you are now watching this video, unless you're bored, and then you've drifted out into the daydreaming state of alpha trance. Theta state is that state just before you fall asleep at night. It's a deep state where you might be hearing something, but you really just don't care. And then delta is when the conscious mind goes to sleep and you sleep through the night. So when you go to sleep at night and when you wake up in the morning, you have to go up and down through those two trance states. When you are in those trance states, you are open to suggestions. And I will tell you, the most powerful suggestions are the ones you give yourself. So every time you say, I am stupid, I am dumb, I am too fat, I am not smart enough, those are powerful, powerful suggestions. The most powerful suggestions you'll ever get come from yourself. But let's talk about the power of suggestion. And you're going to see how all this fits. Because how does the mind work? You focus on something, you hear it over and over and over again, and there's lots of things associating with it. It becomes your expectation. And you can see that that is exactly how politics and religion and social media and advertising and our relationships, they all work in that way. So here is the wonderful thing about having this knowledge. Once you know how it works, once you understand the different parts of your mind and what they're responsible for, you understand how the mind functions with the four laws of the mind, then you can start setting yourself up for success by decoding things, by resisting things, and by thriving. That's right. So hypnotic techniques understand all of the things I've explained to you today. We use the power of suggestion to repetitively help you change habits that you might have. Now, all suggestions can be used for good, and some of them can be used for bad. And what I mean by bad There's a big debate in our community. Can I really make you do something? No, you have to want to. Most of the people that come to see me as a hypnotist don't believe it's going to work. I would guarantee you, unless they were referred by somebody who's had success, 100% of them that walk through my door don't really think this is going to work. But they are desperate. They've tried everything else and it didn't work. So here they are. You don't have to believe it. You have to want the change. And here is the gray area that people in my community, the hypnosis community, will argue about. Can you really make somebody do something that they don't want to do? Personally, I don't believe that. I believe there has to be an openness on the other side. After that, you get into things like brainwashing, which is not hypnosis. It's a totally different thing. That kind of thing that military might use or bad people might use involves sleep deprivation and sound and just disrupting everything about our brain and how it normally works to get somebody to do something they wouldn't normally do, to desensitize them in some ways. That's taking any kind of hypnotic technique and putting it on steroids and going in a direction that most hypnotists don't have a skill set for, quite honestly. However, you can use hypnotic techniques to influence, either positively or negatively. You can use hypnotic techniques to manipulate. And you can see this in every single aspect of your life. How we use any tool can be negative or positive. Look at it in AI. I mean, oh my gosh, AI is a godsend to people in the work environment because it saves us so much time and accesses knowledge that, in a split second that it could take us hours and hours and hours to do. And yet AI, we're already seeing the negative effects of AI with creating images that look very real but are not, that are imitating voices. And so with everything throughout history, you can look back at every invention and see that same thing. So it's important to understand how your brain works with the power of suggestion so that you can use your brain, use your mind effectively so that you are not put under a manipulative or a disingenuous suggestion, that you are aware, because awareness is what most of us walk through the day without. And I think I'm going to leave it there. We'll talk more about hypnosis in this segment. I'm super excited that you are all here, and we're going to start applying it to our daily lives. And I think because it's such a hot topic right now, our next episode will be on hypnosis, hypnotic influence in politics. So for now, be aware, decode, resist, and thrive. I'm Roberta Fernandez, and this is Mindful Influences.